panel. This panel will focus on building a pipeline of teachers and school leadership in New Orleans. And so if I can have our panelists take their seats in the middle. We have Larry Carter, President of the United Teachers of New Orleans. Audrey Perry, Associate Dean of the University of New Orleans College of Education and Human Development, and Chief Executive Officer of the Capital One University of New Orleans Charter School Network, who also has a book coming out later this month. I trust he'll tell us about that in his introduction. Kira Orange-Jones, Executive Director of the Greater New Orleans Teach for America, and Makiyah Moody, Executive Director for Leading Educators. Please welcome them. Yes, you should. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I became a staff person with the United Teachers of New Orleans, but before that, I was a classroom teacher teaching 4th and 6th grade in the New Orleans public schools for about 7 years. And now I'm actually involved in trying to help any system, whether it's recovery school district, whether it's a charter school, or whether it's New Orleans public schools, in the areas of providing quality professional development, also with retainment. How do we retain teachers in this new environment? Because for me, it's not just about the induction, it's not just about getting people hired, it's about how do we retain quality public school teachers.
Great, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Audrey Perry. I'm the Associate Dean for the College of Education and Human Development at the mighty University of New Orleans. I'm also the CEO of the Capital One UNO Charter Network. In that capacity, I help manage 4 charter schools, 3 K through 8, 1 high school. And as was mentioned, I have a book coming out and it talks a little bit about these issues on human capital. So it comes out the 27th at 5:30 at NOCA.
Shameless plug.
So,
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kira Orange-Jones. I'm the Executive Director of Teach for America Greater New Orleans. My first teacher was my mother. She's a 20-year educator in New York City. And when I was growing up, I grew up in a community in the Bronx where you could predict with 98% accuracy the likelihood of students in that community going to college simply based on their zip code. New Orleans is very similar. And so my mother fought very, very hard during my middle school and high school years to get me into a school that would change that prediction. And what that meant was I commuted about an hour and a half either way, to and from school, to basically get that education. Years later, I felt like to whom much is given, much is required, and so I decided I wanted to be an educator when I graduated from college. And while I thought at the time that I wanted to be an educator in the Bronx, like my mom, when I applied to Teach for America and was given my acceptance letter, I was told that I would be teaching in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That was 10 years ago. So for the last 8 years, I've been dating a Louisianan. We have plans to get married, which means I'm probably never leaving Louisiana. I'm now the Executive Director of TFA here. We recruit and support about 450 teachers throughout a 6-parish regional geographic area in Greater New Orleans. We work in about 120 schools currently, support about 115 to 120 administrators. We have another 300 veteran teachers, former teachers or current teachers who are now still working in education across the region, either as master teachers, deans of students, school leaders, regional superintendents, etc. And so that's a little bit about me.
Good evening. My name is Makiyah Moody. I currently serve as the Executive Director of Leading Educators Greater New Orleans, which is the flagship region for a national expansion that's underway with Leading Educators. My background is that I worked for KIP, the Knowledge Power Program in Chicago for 3 years, planning professional development for their network of schools that is rapidly expanding across the country. And then after that, went to work for KIP Lee College Prep in Gary, Indiana, in roles that related to finance and operations as well as fundraising. Leading Educators is a 2-year professional development program where we try to leverage the talents and build the competencies and skill sets of teacher leaders, which are people that are in middle leadership roles at their schools. And we focus on developing, their leadership capacity, since it takes a different skill set and knowledge base to lead adults versus leading a classroom of students. Thanks.
Thanks. We're going to dive right in because we have a lot of good questions. So we're going to start with the topic at the top of the list. So just for context, all of these folks work on the supply side of teacher and leader preparation and development or support. So we might as well dive into the topic that everybody talks about in New Orleans, right? At least one of them. Preparation. There's a significant debate in this town about the issue of teacher preparation, whether traditional preparation or alternative preparation is preferred. But what research indicates is that the type of preparation matters less than the rigor of that preparation. So let's talk a little bit about what constitutes rigorous preparation and how do your institutions or organizations help to support new teachers that are developed. Feel free, you guys can jump in. This is an informal conversation.
So Leading Educators, our training curriculum is built around 3 core pillars, which are leadership and management, learning and teaching, and school culture, believing that within those subsets there's all characteristics or elements that would increase student achievement. So our end goal is that as we develop the competencies of these teacher leaders, that they'll therefore influence an increase in student achievement. I think that the importance of the rigor and preparation, I think that job-embedded professional development is critical. And so that's the need that we fill, in that our applicant profile is a minimum of 2 years teaching experience. And so it's really a retention tool, because if more teacher leaders have a sense of efficacy in the role and the work that they're doing, it's more likely that we're going to retain high-quality candidates.
So we support teachers who are selected through a very rigorous selection process. And so last year we had about 48,000 people across the country apply to be in Teach for America, and we accepted less than 4,000 to be in the program to support a national, nationally we accepted about 4,000. I think I would say there are 2 different types of preparation early in sort of the beginning of a teacher's career. For those of our teachers who actually haven't taught prior, those many have. I would say that it's about prioritizing. They come in with leadership ability, which many of our teachers do, which is how they were able to make that rigorous selection bar. It's about helping them translate the assets that led them to be effective leaders in another context to a classroom setting. What I realized as a 4th grade teacher myself, what I know many of our teachers realize, what I see when I observe teachers across the city and the state, is really when you see an amazing teacher leading a group of students to academic achievement, what you see is a tremendous leader. Right? And so what we've got to do is figure out how to take those characteristics that make leaders effective and figure out how to translate it so that our teachers are effective with their students. We think that there's a few key tenets to that it's about being able to articulate a really clear, ambitious, very, very, very clear endpoint for where you want your students to be by the end of the year that is ambitious and is going to literally set your kids up to be on a path to live the lives that they want to live based on the academic background that they got in their classroom. It's about being able to invest your students in that goal and be able to work with families and with colleagues and others in the building to accomplish that. It's about knowing your content and being able to plan purposefully at the either classroom, sort of daily lesson plan level, unit level, year-long level, to be able to get there effectively. We know it's about hard work. When I look at great teachers, they work really hard, and there's no way around that, given what our students deserve. And it's about a process of continuous reflection, being able to look at a class, know what happened today in my classroom, and know of all the things I could prioritize, how do I prioritize the thing tomorrow that is going to make me a better educator for my kids. And so we basically work with our teachers first at a really rigorous summer training institute, and then along the course of the first 2 years of their careers, really going through a process of building those skill sets in the context of the classrooms that they're teaching and within the context of the grade levels that they're teaching. We also partner with the New Teacher Project. Andrew a while ago spoke about one of the teacher preparation certification programs that exists within the state that the New Teacher Project runs, that is, through a recent value add study was given the very highest rating, which we're very proud of, all of our teachers. go through that over the course of the 2 years that they're in their first 2 years of teaching.
Yeah, I think rigor for me, and particularly for university providers, have many different contexts. You have the understanding of the philosophical underpinnings of education. You have to know why you're educating and for what purpose. The other piece is the technical aspects of education. You got to know what it takes to be a teacher, how to construct a lesson plan, what to put on the board, how to seat kids. And then there's the rigor of time that I don't think people appreciate enough. The College of Education, if you're in a program, you have time to test yourself, time to spend in the classroom. The other aspect I don't think we talk about enough, there's the rigor that's not measured. It's the rigor of the ability to love a kid. You know, and I can say this, I'll take it. Because many of the sort of market-driven neoliberal testing sort of orientation we're going into, it's actually eliminating good teaching. It's actually eliminating the ability to discern from the teacher's perspective what is good in this situation. And so I do think that there's this component, this ratio, or this love factor that should be involved in that rigorous process of determining what's a good teacher. I just think we miss it now because we're just so focused on this is what our outcome has to be. Yet, and despite all that, nationwide, state test scores are going this way. ACT scores are going down, right? And for a researcher, it's like, okay, supposedly our teaching is going this way, but still we're getting the same outcomes. In addition, our dropout rate is like this. Good teaching is the ability to hold on to your students as well. So I don't know how you test that, but I know it's a factor, and I know it's there, and we don't talk about it enough. And in addition, and one more in terms of the factor, and you'll see this in all the presentation, or an absence of this in the presentations. There should be a diversity framework when we're hiring our teachers. Diversity is probably one of the things that is completely, there's a byproduct of diversity that we don't see the benefits of. When we're saying we need a rigorous program, we need a high-achieving teacher. And this is reality. We're creating monolithic teachers. It's either going to be all white or all black. You can literally go into a Sojourner Truth and see all white teachers. You can literally go into an RSC school, maybe, no, not RSC, another school, and see all black teachers. That's not giving students the type of rigor, and it's not giving teachers the type of rigor that will ultimately yield the end result. And so I think those kind of factors we don't deal with.
Can I just clarify? I want to make sure I understand. Are you trying to say that schools should be more diverse? Like basically the composition of the teaching faculty should be more diverse?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that what we do is that we'll say, oh, I need the best teachers, period. And we end up saying that this teacher is not good because of X, Y, Z, because of this program, because of this history, because of this and that. And in every other aspect of the world, intelligence and stupidity is diverse, right? I mean, it is completely diverse. The range of talent is distributed equally. But when we talk about our talent in our teaching pool, it's like, man, it's...
Right. So can we hold that? I want to get to that when we get to the components of building a pipeline.
Right.
So I want to give Larry an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, with that,
and before that, so you can be thinking about it, because the two of you represent alt and traditional certification, right? tell me a little bit about what you're learning. So you know how you're preparing, right? But tell us a little bit about what you're learning that can inform how we think about preparation.
And I do agree. That's one of the things that in our organization, we're not a pipeline. We don't go and recruit necessarily, but we do monitor those agencies and schools that actually do prepare students, to become teachers in the classroom, so that when they do come into the classroom, we're there to help support them in any way that we can. So I would love, and that's what I was going to ask, I really didn't have much to say about this particular question, that we can actually get into, because for me it's about where's the traditional four-year college, or whether it's an alternative certification, that preparation that puts you in the school site. It is about the rigor. And for us, it's about finding a compassionate teacher who's highly qualified to be in the classroom and to actually impact the learning and teaching in that classroom. So I would love to kind of hear that kind of discussion too. I'm going to be honest.
But I've learned that in my program that colleges and universities need to find better talent. In the sense of colleges of education has been the last resort for a long time now. They've been the place where people go when they can't make it in mathematics, when they can't make it in biology, they can't make it in whatever. That can't be, and I don't want to get too historical, but particularly in black communities, the best and the brightest of the communities were teachers. Some of it was predicated on a segregated history and your limited options for profession. Now we're seeing the baby boomers' children not wanting to go into teaching. They're going into law, they're going into medicine, they're going into ed policy. They're on DC, they're doing great things. They're not becoming teachers. And so that's what I've learned about the traditional system. For so long, we just rested on this. They'll come to us. And what I see in the new teacher project from Teach for America, they're aggressive about finding the best.
Right. So is that changing how you guys do business?
Oh,
How you think about outreach and recruitment?
No, I can say there's still an old school sort of, that's not our role. But it's changing. It's slow and it's painful, but it's changing. Obviously, most colleges of education now have an alt cert program, but they're always fledgling because you got to have the faculty sort of behind it. And right now, most of the faculty were brought up in traditional systems. But trust me when I say, colleges of education will shut down if they do not find the best and brightest in their own universities. And I think that's what I've learned over the last, since I've been in the universities for 20 years now. And for those 20 years, we have not sought the best and brightest in our own institutions.
Kira, tell us a little bit about what you guys are learning.
It's similar. The first one is actually quite similar. I think about my own background. When I told my friends when I was graduating from college what I was doing, my other friends who were African American, they were like, "Why are you doing that?"
Right.
Like that was not the thing that was expected of me. And many times I find myself having conversations with college seniors, African American or Latino, who are trying to figure out what to do. They feel as though they've reached a certain level of success, and they're like, why would I go do this? Like, I have to go to law school, I have to go to med school. Why would I decide to go into education after everything that I've been afforded? I'm the first person in my family who's graduated from college. And I think that is something that needs to change in this country, and I think that I know that we feel it in an organization that is committed to recruiting. When we talk about the best and the brightest, the reality is we recruit in over 450 colleges and universities across this country. You name it, we are trying to find college seniors on that campus who are considering an education, considering a career in education, wants to go to Teach for America. And the problem is that the first problem is that you see the same achievement gap that we are sitting here talking about playing out at the college level. So there aren't that many African Americans that are on the campus, right? Because the gap is actually played out in middle school and in high school, and now it's playing out in colleges. And so that's the first problem. The second is when we do they believe that this would be a divergence in their career. So I think the first thing is trying to figure out how to really compel more African Americans to consider this as a pathway, because it is important, and I think our kids, it is very important. I think the second thing that we are really thinking a lot about when learning, and I think about the classroom that I was in today. I was visiting a kindergarten classroom in her second year teacher today. And what I noticed was she was exceptional. She's one of our strongest teachers. I was in her classroom trying to learn what she's doing so that we can actually figure out as coaches how we can actually provide that level of support to other teachers. You know, she's teaching this group of kindergartners second grade material easily. At one point I turned to the coach and said, I did not know this in kindergarten. Whatever she was teaching, I did not know this. And what I realized was she's in her second year, she really needs to keep teaching. Right? And there's a lot of pressure because she's really good. And I could see in a year that she gets tapped to do something else in that building. Why don't you become the dean? I could see, because there's so much need for leadership. But what she really needs to do is stay where she is and get better. Because I'm watching her lesson and I'm thinking, okay, it was like almost flawless. But you know what? That almost matters in that sentence. And she needs to perfect that craft. And my worry is she'll get pulled to do something else. And that also needs to be a very real part of our conversations that we're having with our teachers early in their careers.
Great transition. So let's talk a little bit about one of the things that David brought up is in the Cowan graph is the number of new teachers we have in New Orleans. First year teaching is first year teaching all day long, right? So if you've done it, you know what that feels like. It is first year teaching, regardless of how you're prepared. You might feel greatly prepared. So when we talk about induction and supporting new teachers, what types of things are we really doing in New Orleans to support and really strengthen first-year teachers, or second-year teachers for that matter? And any of you guys can jump right in.
One of the things we're doing is every Saturday from, I'll say, the beginning of school year until the end of this year, we've been at our office conducting professional development workshop around those professional development concerns that first-year teachers bring to us. We actually do surveys, not just with our members, but with individuals who are actually connected to our organization from a number of other, scopes, like community outreach. And they say to us some of the things that they seek help with is how to actually connect with their students. So we talk about the diversity issue. And one of the things we also have to address is what we call racial healing. Because one of the things when we talk about diversity in the schools, that some of the teachers are saying is that sometimes we do have a problem with connecting with our kids because we're not from the same background. And the third issue for us that we've had to deal with as an organization that looks at a community-based way of kind of developing the whole child is that we have experienced teachers and inexperienced teachers, for first-year teachers, having conflicts within the school setting about, you are the reason why the children are succeeding, I'm here to actually correct that. And that conversation is constantly going on within a school building. And so we've tried to at least create a space within our organization where you have experienced teachers and new teachers to the profession coming in and having conversation about how do you get past that? Because there's two philosophical differences in that one person is saying to another, you're the reasons why for 10 or 15 years schools were failing, but I'm coming to actually develop and grow and make sure that kids actually succeed, and you've been here and it wasn't happening. So we've actually created space in our organization to have that dialogue. And it's very interesting because you do hear where there's young people who come and looking at the movement, because for them it's a movement about how do you come in and change the culture of the educational landscape here in the city. And so they're looking at it as a social work, that they're coming in to actually help revive a sinking ship, so to speak. And I get that, and I actually applaud that. And then you have experienced teachers who are saying, but you know there's this piece where experience has its place as well. And that what's missing sometimes is that education and teaching is not just an art. There's a science to it too as well. And what we find is that you have experience over time that creates the ways in which you deliver instructions to someone. Sometimes if you have experience, you can kind of figure it out. But when you're new, you don't know that just yet. And so no matter, and I'm saying because I know some of those individuals who've gone through many different induction programs find that one of the hurdles they have is when they get into the school site building and they have to talk to their colleagues. We have to begin to realize that there's a conversation that's happening that an administrator may not know, that other colleagues may not know, but how do you create a space in your environment that allows the voices of those two different, warring sides? Because there's a war going on in the school buildings. It's about old and new. And we got to break past that in order for us to really be successful, for sustainable opportunities for people to remain in our classrooms and look at education as a profession and not just somewhere where you come in and you go, you come in and you go. Because what's happening is we start doing what I've been kind of asking with the Recovery School District, with NOBS, and with even some charter schools where I do have conversations with them about this. When teachers leave, are you actually doing exit interviews to find out why they're leaving? Because when they come to my office, it's about lack of support, it's about lack of resources, and it's about lack of commitment from the whole community for that particular school. And so for us, it's been trying to listen and try to, get that out so that we begin to fill that niche for young, and it's mostly young teachers who actually feel their voices really aren't being heard. And so for us, it's about getting the voice in the school to resonate with the community so they can feel a part of that community.
One more thing, it's related to induction, but I appreciate your perspective. It's interesting because I think about my own experience teaching 4th grade in my first year. Never taught, had received training, but as you mentioned, Deirdre, it is hard. It's hard if you have high expectations for yourself and you believe that your kids deserve more and you're willing to do the work. It is going to be hard. There's no way that I would have gotten through that first year without Barbara Pitts. And Barbara Pitts had been in that building for 15 years. No way. My single greatest influence on my first year was Barbara Pitts, taking me under her wing. At times, I could tell she was just like, somebody's got to do something for you, and that's me, right? So we've developed a relationship that exists to this day. And so when you talk about the war, what I would say is wherever that war is happening, we better resolve it quickly because kids are not benefiting if that's happening. That's an adult issue, and we need to figure out how to focus on getting to the kids. If that's happening, then we're not focused on what we need to be.
And that's why I really believe in this diversity thing. When you have different ages, different backgrounds, different experience levels, you have a resource in that building. Too often we're seeing too much of the same, and they're coming with the same problem without having a resource. In addition to the professional development seminars and workshops throughout the year, another great resource is a good school leader who can recognize and check in on the first year teacher, and they probably need to spend more time pairing that new teacher with the veteran teacher, or really not just the veteran, right. So, that's why I think, diversity is important, but you also got to have a great school leader who's going to help that process, facilitate the induction process throughout. Because it's just not about the professional development sort of procedure you have. It's the building of the relationship with the other teachers and with a different type of experience who've been through it.
Okay. Makiyah, did you have anything on that?
There was just so much there. A few comments back, I was going to respond to Mr. Carter with, as far as figuring out how to address some of the complexities and politics within schools. Part of our curriculum is around having difficult conversations and actually doing performance management of adults so that there is there's a high amount of accountability and a sense of how to actually create a common vision around student achievement. So to Kira's point, there is a lot of conversation, trauma, for lack of a better word, within the educational landscape that has nothing to do with students. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is a great opportunity to elevate the discourse so that it's really about student achievement versus some of our own issues and things of that sort.
So we're running out of time on this panel. So I'm going to bundle one question with a few different things because I know you guys are eager to talk about the diversity thing. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the issue of cultural competency and if we didn't talk about building a career ladder, right? So in one question, how do we really begin to create a career ladder to professionalize the profession? And if you could, in that question, consider and talk about the importance of cultural competency in the profession, the opportunity to grow up in the profession. So as a teacher, to be a teacher, but really everyone wants to grow professionally, right? So you talk about this phenomenal educator you're talking about, Kira, right? So what does success look like for her? As a teacher in the classroom, how do we really provide those opportunities inside the work? So that's a lot in one question, but that's all we got.
So to start, I would say that I think there need to be opportunities for career advancement. So the example that Kira was giving of the rock star teacher she saw today, that will probably get tapped to do something outside of the classroom, which would then, in my estimation, kind of diminish her impact on student achievement with the group that she's working with. So finding creative ways to leverage distributed leadership models within schools so that the heavy lifting of the school can be done in collaboration with a dean of students or an RTI coordinator or someone else that's in a middle leadership role, but then also give them opportunities to participate in programs like Leading Educators.
What's distributed leadership? If you could just expound on that briefly.
Oh, okay. So like there's a school leader, and I guess in the general model, it's just like top-down management, but not necessarily leveraging all of the human capital or talent that's in your building. So in the school that I previously worked in Gary, there were team leads, there were content area leads, there were grade level chairs, there were different people that had spheres of influences where they could help push the needle on student achievement and overall operations of the school, where everything didn't just fall to the principal's plate, since there is so much going on.
Got it.
No, well, I think the assumption is, the important thing you got to take into consideration rather is, if you have a more stable school, I think teachers stay longer, right? And when you have teachers viewed as professionals, you incentivize and you treat them like professionals. I mean, I think in this chaotic world in urban education, some of the schools that our teachers are in, they're really not treated like professionals. They're treated like social worker, babysitter, janitor, all these other things, and they can never get to being a teacher. And so, if we can stabilize the work, the environments in which, and this, I may not be popular for saying this, but I think education in this city is leaps and bounds ahead of criminal justice, healthcare, housing, all these other things that can help make neighborhoods safer, all these other things that I think ultimately lead to the professionalism we're looking for. And then around cultural competency, and I don't mean to say this flippantly, I think some of our teachers is to get out and meet other people. I mean, I can't say this enough. It's like, meet people who don't look like you. Come to my house.
That's true, you want us over.
Yeah, I did that. That's right. I mean, in cultural competency, there's a lot built in that. Certainly, I'm a multicultural educator. I respect the text and the literature. But cultural competency is also about knowing others and about knowing yourself. You can't truly know yourself until you're faced with someone else. We are still in our social silos. We never get out of them. And therefore, we treat kids like they're an other. Like they never see, that they're some kind of being, some kind of weird student. We really got to get out and meet other people. And for me, that it's not a flippant answer, but I just see that a lot with teachers. They hang out with only the people in their school. And they don't get out. And I'm like, go down to Maroney, hang out. Like, go to here, go there. We're going to hang out at this bar together every single day. Every single day, it's like, you got to get out. And so, right, it's like, mix it up, meet somebody else, talk to, Teach for America should come over to my house, right? They did, right? Leading Educator should meet someone from somewhere else, right? It's another organization. That's how the types of cross-pollination that leads to the cultural competency we get. And God forbid, invite some of the students' family to your home. These are kind of things that ultimately uplift your awareness of others. And that's what, when I hear cultural competency, I don't want to get too technical and you got to have the multicultural course, we got to show them about Mardi Gras Indians on Friday, and then we got to show them about second lines on Sunday. No. Get out there to Second Life. Go to a church. Go to the lecture series. Go to this and that. Meet other people.
Karen and Mary.
I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about pay,
Go ahead.
because I hear it all the time. This teacher, for example, that we're talking about, will be offered more money to go do something else, either related to education or not, in the next several years that will make it hard to be competitive with what she's doing. Even if she cares about this, she is in this for the right reasons, the reality is the signals we send when we consider professional as a broader society that do not align to what we actually incentivize on the pay scale. And I think it matters. And I don't believe it's just an issue as it relates to schools or educators. I think it's a societal problem because it's about what we prioritize and where we actually, and sort of where we place value. And I think until we start to have that broader conversation, and until we start to push our policymakers and our politicians and others to act on behalf of educators and to truly advocate, because what we know more than anything else is it takes a lot. It takes a village to change the life of a child in terms of academic achievement, but we know the most important variable, as Andrew said in his opening, is the interaction that happens in that classroom, right, between a teacher and a student. And so we have to figure out ways to protect that interaction, particularly for our strongest teachers. And I believe as a broader society, we've not yet figured that out.
And I'll be very, very brief. One of the things that strikes me is often I hear politicians or policymakers talk about doing more with less. And in education, we often say that and think that we can get, squeeze the very essence out of an individual and get them to perform much better. And saying that it's not the compensation that teachers and school employees look for. It's just about they want to do the right thing. But that is, and I'm glad you brought it up. It wasn't just me, because I usually, as a leader of a teachers union, get all about money. But it's not. It's really not. It really is about working conditions. Exactly. It's about working conditions. When I have teachers sitting in my office, the number one thing they talk about is working conditions. And working conditions talks about textbooks, talks about school supplies. It talks about that blackboard or that screen up there where they can actually see it and it's not breaking. They talk about materials and books. And for us, when I say the working conditions of the teacher is also the learning environments for our students, I mean that. Because for me, if we take care of what teachers want, because if we really look at it, they should be the experts, but then when we have bigger conversations, they're not looked at like that. They're looked at as product, deliver, and shoot them out the door. We got to look at this in terms of teachers as the experts.
So
we don't often go to them. They're last to be touched.
That was a great segue.
Yeah.
You trying to take my segue away?
So for me, it's about actually, if we really pay close attention to the working conditions and the learning environments of our teachers and also of our students, I think we'll really pay attention.
I just want to add to that because I think you're right on. I would just say in any other profession, in addition to that, what we are able to do to basically think about compensation is look at results. And so what we need to do is figure out how do we link teacher performance to results in a very clear way. And by results, what we mean, we talked about proxies in the reflection for this book. Student achievement is not even a proxy. That is ultimately what our teachers are there for. And so we have to figure out how to ensure that that is a very real part of how we're thinking about compensation.
Give them a round of applause, folks. Thank you so much for our panel. And we saved the experts for last. So if I can get you guys to take the first